Intelligence Report, July 15, 2026. Geopolitical and Macroeconomics. Soft U.S. inflation data stacked. After Tuesday's soft June CPI, June producer prices fell 0.3% month-over-month versus flat expected, and rose 5.5% year-over-year versus 6.2% expected. Core PPI was only 0.2% month-over-month. New York Fed President Williams said inflation has peaked and expects overall inflation near 3.25% by year-end, then a glide toward 2% through 2027 and 2028. Two-year yields eased and July Fed hike odds stayed crushed. U.S.-Iran hostilities remain the hard counterweight. A fifth day of heavy strikes, a new U.S. wave of attacks, and threats around power and shipping infrastructure. Brent crude held above about $85 after an about 11% surge over 2 sessions. The U.S. Treasury froze over $130 million in Iran-linked crypto wallets. OFAC/Central Bank of Iran-linked addresses. China's second quarter growth cooled to a 3.5-year low. South Korea's central bank is expected to raise rates on 16 July for the first time in over 3 years. Soft U.S. data plus hot oil and war risk keeps a split macro regime. Better liquidity odds, fatter energy tails. General crypto market. Bitcoin reclaimed and briefly topped about $65,000 after soft PPI and Williams's comments. Spot printed in the mid-$64,000 to mid-$65,000 range through the session. Ether led majors with multi-percent gains into the high 1,800s/low 1,900s. This is generally viewed as rate sensitivity relief rather than a confirmed trend change while oil and Hormuz headlines stay live. U.S. Spot Bitcoin ETFs took in about $181 million on Tuesday after Monday's about $425 million outflow day. So value via CoinDesk. Ether ETFs added about $58 million. Flow choppiness remains the demand signal. Strategy's CEO said the firm feels very secure until Bitcoin reaches $8,000 to $10,000 and highlighted larger dollar reserves as a preferred stock stabilizer. Bitmine reported about $45.7 million of Ethereum staking revenue, about 98% of quarterly revenue, and continues treasury accumulation. BlackRock's crypto assets fell about 39% despite about $15 billion of net inflows over the past year. A price damage story, not a flow stop story. EDX Markets closed a $76 million Series C led by SBI. eToro took a strategic stake in on-chain perps Venue Extended. Stripe and Advent were reported to bid over $53 billion for PayPal. Recent X posts from key accounts. At Ripple, July 14th announced 25 recipients of the Ripple Effect Certified Veteran Employer Grants, $250,000 invested with Hire Heroes USA, $10,000 each plus training and access to 20,000 plus military-connected job seekers. At Stellar.org, July 14th Dense Ecosystem Pass, Atchesley Mainnet, Google Login Wallet, SCF Demo Day Recap, Open Zeppelin Relayer on AWS/GCP. Abroad USDC to local rails and freighter. RWA holders up about 15% over 30 days past 19,000. And DTCC selecting Stellar to tokenize Russell 1000 stocks, ETFs, and treasuries. Live target first half 2027. Framing about $114 trillion of DTC custodied securities moving toward blockchain rails. Traditional finance plus crypto convergence. U.S. and U.K. Treasuries released a 10-point transatlantic task force roadmap on tokenized assets, stablecoins, and digital markets. Industry-led cross-border pilots, coordinated tokenized securities rules, and support for cross-border stablecoins without new binding statutes. The UK set early 2027 for its first G7 digital sovereign bond, DIGIT, on HSBC's Orion platform inside the BO/FCA digital securities sandbox. Governor Bailey said the bank will work to make DIGIT eligible as collateral in market operations. Separately, CoinDesk Live Markets cited a Wall Street Journal report that DTCC is converting a batch of shares and treasuries into digital tokens in a trial involving Goldman Sachs, BlackRock, JP Morgan, Vanguard, and nearly 40 firms. Names include Microsoft, Circle, Invesco QQQ, SPY, and short treasury products. Emirates NBD went live with blockchain cross-border payments via Partier. Velocity raised $38 million for enterprise stablecoin treasury infrastructure. Wall Street turned more cautious on Circle. Mizuho underperformed $50 target. JP Morgan pressure notes on USDC economics versus hyperliquid and yield pass-through competitors. These moves are generally viewed as strategic for regulated stablecoin and institutional tokenization rails. Regulatory developments. Japan's Diet completed passage of Financial Instruments and Exchange Act amendments reclassifying crypto as financial products from Payment Services Act payments framing. Separate taxation near 20% from up to 55% is baselined for 2028. Insider trading, disclosure, and unregistered operator penalties tighten. Path opens toward domestic spot crypto ETFs as early as 2027, though product approvals are not yet confirmed. Rules expected to take effect within about 1 year of promulgation around 2027 for the core FIEA shift. U.S. Clarity Act pressure rose. Some Senate Democrats branded the bill corrupt. 3 senators opposed on ethics grounds. Majority Leader Thune still cited a possible vote before 10 August if Democratic votes exist. Treasury Secretary Bessent confirmed OFAC freezes over $130 million in Iran-linked crypto wallets amid the conflict. South Korea plans to fold digital assets into a new national state asset management framework. Czech Republic blacklisted Polymarket as unauthorized online gambling. ISP block order. UK fraud review called for judge training on crypto laundering and AI scams. EU AMLA flagged AML risks during post-MiCA firm migration. This type of multi-jurisdiction stack usually means Rails progress abroad while US market structure remains hostage to pre-recess politics. DEFI and RWA tokenization. DTCC's live tokenization pilot and the UK's Digit Gilt timeline dominate the institutional RWA tape. Stellars claimed DTCC Russell 1000/ETF/Treasury tokenization selection, first half 2027, and about 15% 30-day RWA holder growth reinforce multi-chain competition for real asset settlement. ETH Systems spun out of the Ethereum Foundation's institutional privacy work, Bitmine and Joe Lubin linked backing, to sell privacy tools for banks on public Ethereum. Galaxy continues blending Aave, Morpho, and other DeFi rates into its GOFR borrowing product. Near Governance voted to scrap developer gas rebates so all gas is burned. On the risk side, Prism relaunched after an exploit diverted nearly 40% of fees. Argentina ordered freezes on 25 Libra-linked wallets. Analysts note funds not yet actually frozen. Fidelity's lie still frames tokenization's real pension play as balance sheet management, not retail theater. This is generally viewed as constructive for RWA rails but still fragile on obscurity and state-level prediction/gambling edges. AI and blockchain. The X402 agentic payments standard went mainstream under Linux Foundation governance with about 40 members. Visa, MasterCard, American Express, Ripple, Stripe, Adyen, Fiserv, Shopify, Google, AWS, Cloudflare, Circle, MoonPay, plus Solana and Stellar foundations. Protocol volume. About 75 million payments totaling about $24 million over 30 days. Average about 32 cents. Machine-to-machine economics card rails cannot price. Coinbase said over 95% of its code is now written with AI help. TeraWulf shares fell about 7% after New York's one-year pause on new data center permits. Existing sites said unaffected. Anthropic and Blackstone launched Ode to push enterprise AI adoption. NVIDIA H200 shipments/licenses toward China remain a careful tech trade thaw story. DeepMind's Hasabi's again framed AGI as near-term and systemically large. This convergence of AI agents, stablecoin micropayments, and power infrastructure is generally viewed as multi-year, not a one-day trade. Prediction markets. The CFTC ordered CalSure not to cancel Michigan customer trades despite a state court order to void, cancel, and refund sports event contracts. Chairman Selig said states cannot bully registered DCMs into unwinding executed trades. CalSure says CFTC and Michigan orders leave it in an impossible position. The Czech Republic ordered ISPs to block Polymarket as unlicensed gambling. Federal preemption versus state gambling law remains the structural fight while World Cup volumes keep product market fit loud. This is generally viewed as explosive demand meeting fragmented legality. Risk/opportunity analysis. Risks. Hormuz/Iran escalation and oil above $85 can reignite inflation and hike pricing even after soft CPI and PPI. ETF flows flipped positive for one day after a $425 million outflow. Not yet a sustained bid. Clarity Act Democratic opposition and ethics attacks can slip the August window. Prediction market state fights. Michigan cancel orders. Check blocks. Threaten product certainty. Circle margin pressure and USDC competitive economics matter for stablecoin rails. DeFi fee exploits and quiet XRPL growth still matter under the RWA narrative. Opportunities. Soft PPI plus Williams peak inflation language extend the liquidity reset. Japan's FIEA reclassification and 20% tax path is a major Asia Rails event. U.S. UK tokenization roadmap, UK digit gilt, and DTCC's live equity/treasury token pilot form a dense institutional stack. X402 with Visa, MasterCard, and Ripple puts AI agent stablecoin payments on a standards body. Stellar's DTCC/RWA narrative and ETH systems institutional privacy deepen the Rails overspeculation thesis. Recommendations. Short term. Watch whether Bitcoin holds above about $64,000 with soft data and rising oil. Track Tuesday's about $181 million Bitcoin ETF inflow for follow-through. Monitor Iran/oil headlines into Fed communication. Midterm. Follow Clarity Act text and Democratic votes before 10 August. Japan FIEA implementation and ETF pathway. UK digit and DTCC pilot scope. CFTC versus Michigan/Czech prediction market fights. Circle competitive margins. Long-term. Favor rails where regulated stablecoin payments, tokenized government debt and securities, AI agent micropayments, X402, and institutional privacy layers intersect. Key metrics to watch. Bitcoin path versus $64,000 to $66,000 after soft PPI and any Hormuz oil spike. US spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF daily net flows after the $181 million/$58 million. Utional privacy layers intersect. Key metrics to watch. Bitcoin path versus $64,000 to $66,000 after soft PPI and any Hormuz oil spike. US spot Bitcoin and Ethereum ETF daily net flows after the $181 million/$58 million inflow day. Fed hike odds, Williams follow-through and September FOMC positioning, Clarity Act text, Democratic opposition counts and pre-August Senate schedule, Japan FIEA promulgation timeline and 2027-2028 tax/ETF path, UK digit sizing and DTCC tokenization pilot asset list/settlement design, X402 monthly volume and enterprise agent adoption, prediction market legal outcomes, Michigan, Czech, CFTC preemption, XRPL new wallets/active addresses and Stellar RWA holders/tokenized TVL. This is not financial advice. This has been your daily market intelligence report for the July 15, 2026.